Hi, Vic. Thank you so much for taking the time to meet with me. It's a real honor and a privilege. Vic, you are a part-time student in Temple University, which is a top 5 law school for trial advocacy in America. How is the current COVID-19 situation affecting your studies?
Well, I mean, um, as far as um, law school goes, with every law school, we've been having most of our courses or all of our courses conducted remotely. But what has been particularly interesting was the ITAP program, which stands for Integrated Trial Advocacy Program, which I was part of this past semester. And we actually had the opportunity to um, conduct a mock trial virtually, which meant that me and my co-counsel had to come up with the theme of the trial virtually, prep our witnesses virtually as well, and then sort of coordinate all of that, which culminated into I would say a pretty successful trial.
So this might actually give you an edge once you move into the law profession, being able to work remotely and be able to do a trial remotely.
Yeah, I think this was an experiment uh, which I think has taught me how to be able to work with different people and your fellow colleagues, even though you can't like sit down in person, come up with strategies to sort of come up with alternatives. So me and my co-counsel did have a lot of Zoom meetings prior to the trial to figure out what the strategy was, what the theme was, what the opening statement was going to be, or the closing was going to be, and how it flows well together. So it kind of forced us to sort of be able to present the best case possible, which was hard. It's easier to do it in person as opposed to be able to do it virtually, because we've done that in both ways. But yeah, it's been a very sort of interesting sort of challenge, and I think that I can see that happening even in the actual world, where I've seen other attorneys conducting depositions virtually as well, or defending depositions virtually as well, and they have been surprisingly very successful at that as well.
So law students typically get summer internships during their second and third year of law school. How has the pandemic affected the summer internship programs for both you and your fellow soon-to-be law school student graduates?
Yeah, so this is the issue that I don't think a lot of legal blogs are talking about, and I'm glad that you have raised this question, because students graduating next year, me as a third year or a rising 4LE, or a fourth year evening student, and third years graduating next year, we kind of rely on campus interviews that we had last year, and we were supposed to have internships lined up this coming summer, which basically paves the path of what our career is going to be entering the legal world as professional attorneys. A lot of those have either been delayed or canceled completely, and with the current market the way it is, where the current attorneys either getting furloughed or being let go, and you know uh, attorneys at law firms taking a pay cut of anywhere between 20 to 50% of what their salary was prior to the COVID pandemic, really sort of makes you sort of question what the future of young rising future attorneys is going to be. So that is something that is definitely concerning.
So Vic, knowing that many of the law firms have either let go, furloughed, and or cut salaries recently, how has this affected the morale and the security for the future of the law students? Have you seen any law students dropping out, thinking they may not be able to find jobs after this?
I think law students are far too long in the education process to actually drop out at this point. I think that doesn't seem feasible. But I have as personally, and talking to my classmates, it is definitely concerning for a lot of people who have worked towards getting the best GPA and building up a resume, and then getting a summer associate position to then have be pulled away. So it definitely does dampen the morale. But at the same time, there are some firms that are still continuing with the summer associate program, even though it's kind of either shortened or delayed, which gives you some hope. But at the same time, I think as a future attorney, you have to be realistic of what the market is going to be once you graduate from law school, and just like any other industry, the legal industry is also not immune to the impacts of COVID. And I think students going in, and even like students planning on applying and making a decision to have hundreds and thousands of dollars in debt going to law school, should keep that in mind if they do want to pursue a career in the legal space, or any space for that matter. But especially the legal space, because legal education is very expensive. So I think people need to be more realistic about how they plan their future and what to expect going ahead graduating from law school.
Have you seen any of the larger law firms, partners or anything, reaching out to students during this time, trying to help them during this situation and comfort them, maybe helping them see a brighter future for themselves?
I had, so this past semester, I took this course called patent litigation, which was taught by two adjunct professors who are, Hatch-Waxman litigation partners at Aiken Gump. And they were very encouraging and positive during the time when we were having our classes via Zoom or virtually. And they did help us talk about, and even also all other professors always spent time the first 5 or 10 minutes of the class talking about positive aspects of what's happening in their lives, and trying to making sure that everyone's doing well. So people in the community, especially in the legal community with the school and the professors and everything, have been very positive in making sure that the students are handling the situation and trying to limit any sort of stress that students might possibly have to go through, which is why all our finals were an automatic pass or fail for this past semester, because we were taking our exams virtually. So the school made sure that we didn't have any more added stress to what was already going on. So the community has been very positive with that approach.
Would you want to give a specific thank you to those two professors?
I think they were very, I would want to give a thank you to pretty much everyone, my classmates, my professors, and the school, that have been very understanding and accommodating to everyone's situation to the best of their capabilities. And I really appreciate the sort of feedback that I've gotten these past couple of months. So I think everyone's well-deserved who's kind of working through this crisis.
So you're as skilled in Hatch-Waxman litigation. Do you see the COVID-19 situation having a financial impact on these litigations?
Yes, I do. Well, number one is the fact that, other than, Hatch-Waxman lawsuits more often than not end up going to trial. So I think 30% of all Hatch-Waxman lawsuits end up at trial, which is a very high percentage as opposed to any other civil litigation. So unless courts are able to figure out an alternative, and using the ITAP example, which we went through, where we didn't have a jury for that exercise, which is the same situation for Hatch-Waxman litigations, because they're not actual damages in a Hatch-Waxman litigation. I think being able to do a virtual trial might be the future that the courts need to embrace, because trials are the most lucrative for the law firms, and also cost most money for pharmaceutical companies for the time period that you actually spend time doing it. And the fact that in the Third Circuit, no trial has been conducted since the COVID lockdown kind of gives concern, because either this cases have been stayed or been postponed indefinitely until the courts reopen, does have a financial impact. And more so with generic pharmaceuticals being involved in R&D, trying to develop a generic version of it, need to be in the facilities to be able to develop and do research, which was limited during the lockdown, which is I've heard from my colleagues or former colleagues that it's finally starting to open up the market. The industry is finally opening up and allowing their R&D researchers to come in and do research. And some generic companies have actually been able to file their ANDAs with the FDA during the COVID. So, it is too early to tell what the long-term financial impact is going to be on pharmaceutical Hatch-Waxman litigation. And only time will tell. It depends on how the industry embraces these changes.
As a young professional and working in IP, do you think the current situation is helping you foster a particular set of skills? And if so, can you share a few examples?
Yeah, so I don't think as an IP professional, I have honed on specific skills. What I have sort of been working towards is a good work ethic, because it's very easy to sort of lose yourself with and lose the routine that you would follow if you were actually going to work. So I think a good work ethic is something that I've been working on, and I see a lot of my former colleagues and fellow students kind of getting into that sort of regiment as well.
If you had 30 seconds or less to tell some of the law firms, many of the legal professionals, partners, or anyone else that may be watching in the IP space and in the legal space in general, if you had 30 seconds or less to tell them what they should expect from the young professionals, the future leaders of this industry, what would you tell them?
I would tell them to embrace technology. I think what COVID has done is kind of forced us to embrace alternative ways of working, which the legal world has sort of not been very welcoming before. IT has always been sort of forward thinking. Law always kind of is 2 or 3 steps behind of what the technology is in comings with regulations or laws and catching up to the changing technology. I think what COVID has done is forced us to embrace it. And I think going forward, I would encourage law firms, attorneys, judges, and even like giant corporations that have a big in-house counsel to embrace alternative ways of working and embracing technology. Because I think that is the way of the future. And if you don't get on board, you're just going to either lose talent or just fall behind.
And Vik, as a young professional, what would you say to the law firms that would want to attract such potential bright stars, future bright stars in the industry? What would you say would it be the most attractive to get someone like you or some of your classmates to go work for their firm over others?
I think flexibility. And, I think that is going to be how you attract, rather than like offering a big paycheck. I think being more flexible with how a person is able to work and deliver their work product, flexibility around how they need to not be physically present in the office and working around people's routines. I think the flexibility aspect of it is going to be how the future firms are going to attract talent.